Hello, everyone. I'm Kim Miller. I'm the Executive Director and the founder of FemArt organization. We are a 501c3, which means we're a nonprofit organization, and our mission is to support and promote women in the fine arts. And we are so happy that we are having our first virtual art experience coming up in June. And we have 29 incredible women artists, and you will be able to meet all of them if you like, and that is through this interview process. And today we are interviewing a wonderful professional photographer, artist, and her name is Ronni Burak, and we are going to ask her some really wonderful questions that I am really looking forward to hearing her responses, because she is a fascinating person that I think all of you will really like and will want to follow her artwork and definitely see her in our upcoming show. Ronni, I first want to welcome you, and I want to ask you, what inspires you to do art? And if you could tell us not just your inspirations, but why you are an artist.
Well, thank you very much for interviewing me. And um, that's a big question. And I I think I have to give some background about telling a little bit about myself. Um, I was a painting major in college, and I think my inspirations were that always as a child, I liked to draw. And actually, I thought maybe the art was my place because I wasn't sure I was smart enough for other things, but I could draw. So I went to art school at Boston University, and then when I graduated, I wasn't sure that I would really paint for a living. I don't know. I think I was much more focused on people and being out in the world. And so I went to live on the Navajo reservation with my husband for 2 years and taught art to Navajo kids, and the art would just pour out of them, pour out of them. I mean, it was just amazing. I've never seen anything like it. And that was so inspiring. And I started actually working with a psychologist there who felt that she would like to get me to have the kids draw so that she could understand what was going on with them, because a lot of what they were feeling, they weren't able to really express. I mean, they spoke a foreign language. English was their second language, and they were young. And so we started this collaboration. And from then I learned that there was a program in Philadelphia at Hahnemann Medical School that trained artists to work in psychiatric hospitals. So I started doing that. And so my inspiration came from really working with other people, using art as a way to help them express their feelings, their conflicts, their worries, their concerns. And in my career doing that, I worked with heroin addicts for a while. I worked with psychiatric patients in psychiatric hospitals. I worked in a private practice, and then I decided to go back and get my PhD in psychology. And I kind of got away from my art, even though my dissertation was an art-related thing. It was using a mural with families to evaluate family interaction. So you would lay out paper and you would have a family do a mural, and you would video them, and you would talk to them, and you would look at the images they did and the symbols and the physical relationships between all of the people. And it would be an assessment of a family interaction. So that was my dissertation. But as I got over the years into my own practice, I got away from my own creative self because I was so much involved in other people's. And what got me back, what was truly my inspiration to get into photography, is I have a son, my only son, who went to college as a geography major, and people said, well, what's he going to do with that? And he said, travel. So he did. So he went to New Zealand and he got a camera and he got a National Geographic photography book, and he discovered that he really had a gift for this. And when he came back, he gave me a gift of a course up at the Maine Media Center in Rockport, Maine. And I took my first photography week-long course with a landscape photographer up there, and I was hooked. I was just hooked. I was hooked on the medium of photography. I was hooked on Rockport, Maine. I mean, you couldn't have picked a better place. And I had no experience with the technology. I had the eye, I had the art background, but I had no experience with the technology. And my son literally sat by my side in the class helping me with the technology because everyone else were experienced photographers. But that really started me. And I started when I go back to your question about what inspired me, is it's like almost everything. People inspire me a lot. A lot of my work is street photography. I'm very inspired by people especially that just seem like real characters off the street, or people who express a lot of emotion, or just people in general. But then I also get away from people, and I'm inspired by the beauty of the natural environment of, I think one of the pictures I submitted, well, two of the pictures I submitted was of Patagonia. So when I travel, that inspires me to, look at places that are different and foreign and unique and majestic. And, I look at the big panorama, that's really exciting. But then just the small little things, like just, an intimate kind of a flower, or just a small piece of the landscape. And then there's the urban environment that, I love reflections in windows. I think one of the pieces I sold in one of your shows was that, where you look in a shop window and not only do you see what's in the window, but you see the street across and the buildings. And so I got into this whole thing about reflections, really inspired me. So it's sort of whatever comes my way inspires me. I'm not locked into sort of one particular area. I change all the time.
I love that answer, Ronnie, because you touched on so many artistic influences as far as your journey. Your journey has included everything. And I love that you started out so humble, thinking you weren't smart enough to be anything but an artist. That was really, and the funniest part about that, I felt the same way. I always felt that if I was good at anything, it was at drawing. So I find that very interesting. Not very much into the math or the sciences. So I thought that was cool. But yes, and as much as as many of us artists don't feel that we are really great mathematicians or great scientific minds, and we're very creative, the beauty of that is we actually use math and science in all of the things, like you mentioned, geography, traveling, and
Mhm.
if you are to measure intelligence based on society's standards of test scores and everything, artists, we rank much higher in our artistic expression than a lot of the test will allow to test for. So that's really important. And your journey is just an amazing one. And I've always been fascinated, and I knew about the Navajo influences, and I am particularly excited about that. And for my next question, I actually, you kind of touched on it, but you touched on it from the influential side. Now I would like to ask you the question of how you believe your art impacts our local community here in Jacksonville, and because we're going to have a virtual show that can be seen globally, how you believe that those traveling experiences that inspired you, how do you think your art is going to be impacting um, them, the global world?
Well, I'm very sort of humble in that respect. um, I think that it's our job as artists to show the world in a different way. I mean, there are many ways that people can see the world by being there, by writing about it, by talking about it. But when they say a picture's worth 1,000 words, I really think that's true. That images that artists create are so powerful, and say so much without a word. And I think that that's a really unique experience. I also think that for kids, um, it's a way of developing a sense of the world when you're very young, um, by seeing art and creating art. I mean, just as I said, like the Navajo kids, I mean, art just naturally pours out of us, and it's so natural to children to express themselves, and to see kids all over the world doing that and bringing in their culture, but they all have that same developmental need to express themselves that way as they grow. So we know how important art is for children. I think it's important not only for them to have fun and to express themselves, but I think it's important in terms of their cognitive development and in terms of their ability to do other things in life. To create is power, is self-esteem, is accomplishment, and it's being your own boss. It's using your own mind, your own imagination, um, maybe by being influenced by others, but not by someone telling you to do something in a certain way. And it's individuality. It's an incredible individuality. And we can see that the world is so full of individuals. We are so different yet so alike.
Beautifully said. Wow. I'm always in awe of you. So I am really, and I also would like to mention for everyone out there who may not have had the pleasure of seeing your artwork in a couple of our FemArt shows, you are an award-winning artist and have won awards in two of our shows that you have entered into. And your work is beautiful, and the impact it will have globally is it is so influential. And I can still hear you still talking about the children and how important it is for you to influence that. And I think also it's pretty cool that you're your influences, as you had mentioned in the earlier question, you talked about reflection and how that's a really big part of your art journey. And I think that is going to be probably one of the bigger influences of people seeing it, is not just for them to understand themselves, but in your reflection artwork, they're kind of seeing a reflection of their society or their culture or their experiences. And that is crucial to your art therapist background, as well as how your art impacts the world. So FemArt is so honored to have you as our member and to share in your journey. So this is really wonderful. I do have a third question, and I've been asking all of the artists this question, and that is, when you sit down or when you're standing in a studio or wherever you're going to be performing your art, do you have a preference of whether you are drinking tea, coffee, or wine? Are you more of a person who wants to relax beforehand, or are you a person that needs that extra boost of that caffeine?
Well, I don't drink wine or coffee. My stomach doesn't tolerate it well. So tea it is, and especially mint tea. Yes.
I love it. And so I have a cup of tea that I am going to, and I will make sure to have a cup of mint tea. Let's say this is mint tea, because I
Okay.
will say cheers to you, Ronni Burak, and thank you so much for being a FemArt artist, and thank you so much for being in our upcoming show. I hope everyone gets an opportunity to see your work in Where the Wild Women Go, coming soon. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for having me do this interview. I appreciate it.